Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today I'll be going over my third round game from the 2024 Tri-State Cincy tournament. If you did not see my first two rounds, or the reviews of them, I did end up winning both of those games, although they were both a struggle. They were not easy, but I did end up getting wins in both of them. So going into the third round, my opponent was Xukun Jiang, who is somebody I've actually played this year at the Midwest Open. If you check my games, my videos from that tournament, I also reviewed that game. And Xukun is a very young kid. I don't know the exact age, but definitely younger than 10, but definitely very strong. Now, in the Midwest Open earlier this year, I did end up beating him in a pretty convincing win. It was around 30 points. So going into the game, I was feeling confident, but the thing with very young kids is even though it's the same calendar year, who knows how much stronger they've become since then. So yeah, I didn't know while I was confident going into the game, I did not know how much stronger he had gotten. So I was definitely anticipating him coming back strong. But in this game, I am black. My opponent is white. And I believe he played the exact same double 3-4 in our game earlier this year. And then approach, and I think this was different. I believe in our game earlier this year, he did this, and we got this variation, I believe, which is quite normal nowadays. But in today's game, he played here, which, again, normally you would play here, but he came into this game, or I don't know, into this tournament, maybe with this move in mind, and he had a specific reason to play this move. And it's because he is going to, when I play here, I play the 3-3, he is going to Hane, Atari, and extend. And if you've never seen this before, that's why it's not, I'm not even sure it's Joseki. It's definitely not common for sure. But the thing is, if black plays incorrectly, white's going to get a very good result. So yeah, so if we look at this variation, the two moves come straight to mind, right? We get E3 and we get D2. If we just E3 though, and try to capture with this stone at H3, the cut actually would be working for black. At least to capture. Maybe white wants to do something like this, but the capture seems quite big to me. So the cut does not work for white, but white can actually clamp. And as long as, even though there's this throw in and squeeze here, as long as black can't live in the corner, this is definitely good for white. And the point of the clamp as well is you can't descend because then white can cut. So it's, if you cut me, I'll cut you, but if you connect, then I'll connect. So because of this clamp, this kind of move doesn't work, this Atari. And if we just Atari down, then our 4 stones here are severely attacked by this H3 stone. And white gets a pretty nice corner too. Okay, so what about the cut? Well, the cut, we can live in the corner with something like this, but this corner actually is quite small, and white is definitely very happy here. For example, while this move is not sente, directly, if white blocks here, this actually threatens the corner. This is a very famous life and death, where black goes elsewhere. White can descend once, 2 liberties to 2 liberties, so black has to play here. Black can't play at D1. Black has to play here. And white can simply Hane, and black's dead. Notice black's unable to play at A2. So if this move is not directly sente, but this is, black has to play this kind of move. And again, you can see white's outside is, compared to black's corner, which is just 3 points, 3 to 4 points, black's outside is not doing so well. And even if white doesn't block here to get that sente, if white turns, these 2 black stones are very weak, very, very weak. So yeah. In a lot of these scenarios, taking the corner here is not a good option. It's not a good option. If we squeeze down like this, while this does leave Aji at b2, one, we can't use it immediately. We can't use it immediately. But two, we have to fix our cut. But the problem is h3 is again in a very annoying spot for black. So if we go back to before white pincers, the reason why this feels like a very prepared move is if white goes here and we do the same variation, it would be actually okay or better for black to actually do the squeeze, because now look how weak this pincering stone is. White has to add a move in the corner to avoid ko, and now you can see how little Aji is at the g3 stone. So this would be okay for black. But when that stone's one further away, we can see that we can't put as much pressure on this stone. So this result now would not be as good for black. Would not be as good for black. Just because this stone has all its liberties, it's just a lot stronger. So this doesn't work, and this doesn't work. So the question is, what do you do here? Right? Because surely black isn't, just automatically in danger. But that's where you kind of have to think outside the box and get creative. When the common, most, I guess, instinctual options don't work, that's when you have to think outside the box. And so I would say the Atari and the cut are pretty instinctual moves, maybe first options, but those aren't working. So what else can you look for? And again, we can't really just live in the corner because that's not what's important. So we have cuts and we have Ataris here. We don't know if we want to Atari, we don't know if we want to cut, we don't know if we want to turn. So before we do that, we're going to ask a question first. And what is that question? We're going to attach here. And this is a move I played in the game. And the idea with this move is, one, this is actually directly threatening to cut here. So if white just tries to capture, it's actually a ladder, like so. So directly, I'm threatening to capture the stone here. Now, if white tries to refute that by maybe haneing, now it's not a ladder, because this is Atari. Well, now, with this exchange, this g3 to g4 exchange, I can Atari and then hane here. And now white is unable to play that sequence where white connects, because now white has too many weaknesses. White has too many weaknesses now. So by making this exchange, I'm actually making it so I can Atari down and turn here. So white knows this, but because I have touched, so white connects, but because I have touched this white stone when I stand up, this stone at h3 is much weaker, And white goes elsewhere and I turn here. This is to make capturing the corner a lot harder for white. But white was looking to get some attack here, but now it's actually quite difficult to get an attack here because the stone at h3 is much weaker. Black shape is quite good. Black can lean at d6 later, which actually happens in the game. So this result is even. This result is even. So I take the corner and play up. And again, I play, normally this is the way you would want to play. But I figured since I felt strong here, so I didn't want, since I'm strong in the area, I felt, you only play this if you're strong on that side. And since I felt strong on the bottom, or at least stronger than white, right, as one white stone to the two black stones, I felt it was okay to play here. And it's basically trying to make a bigger moyo as opposed to just taking the points here, but white later can, reduce you down, push you down. So play there, white extends, and we go elsewhere. And then white goes here, which, again, it's not a standard move. It is not a standard move. And this result here is very comparable to, of course, we go elsewhere, very comparable to this kind of variation, right? So why is this more common compared to the upper left one? Well, here's why. At least this is one of the reasons why. If we compare the two, directly, black's corner is bigger, but technically not all blacks, right? Because there's still invasion spots or ways to reduce. Whereas white's upper left is smaller, but more secure. And so one thing you might think, though, is, if black fixes, let's say both sides fix, right? And we push and cut, like this, let's say we push and cut in the upper right, black would be in a lot of danger because we can't just Atari down to the side of the board. Black would get captured here. But if we do it on the upper left, white can simply just capture. White can simply just capture. So this cut is more protected in the upper left than in the upper right. So wouldn't that make it better? Well, the thing is, if you try to push like in the upper right here, black's not going to save the 2. These 2 stones here that black played at Q14 and P14, their main use is that there's a cut, potential cut at R13. That's their whole purpose in life, is to make this cut exist. But when white fixes, almost immediately, these 2 stones have lost a lot of value. So when you try to push here, black can just give them up. And we can see after we've pushed through, okay, we've captured the 2 stones, but look how close R12 gets. If you change the order, you pushed first and black did this, you would never come back and play R12. So it's almost a wasted move. It's almost a pass. So as soon as white fixes, these 2 stones become useless. They become useless. So then what's the better move for white then? The better move is to attack the whole group by playing this kind of move. This is how you attack this upper right group, this upper right formation. And yeah, this hits the weakness of black's shape, and it's hard for black to kind of manage now, this upper right. But let's look at the upper left. If we look at the upper left now, the idea is, okay, we cannot push through and cut, right? We can't do that, although even in this kind of case, this would actually be a better result for black still. But we can't separate white, I guess is the key here. But instead, we still can attack the shape. And that's the key for both of these formations, is we can attack the shape of both of them. And so white needs to fix. And again, white's corner is quite small all of a sudden. It's even smaller than before. So what that means is when your opponent fixes, you really do still need to add a extra move because this weakness at F17 or O17 is too painful. That's why when people fix here, if you look in a Joseki book, they fix at O17 or some move around here. It's to avoid not losing those 2 outside stones, but it's in fact the threat of getting surrounded like this. So yeah, so what that means is regardless of which one you pick, this weakness will still exist at F17 or O17. And so that means there's still a weakness, but your corner is going to be smaller. So since the corner is smaller, black is considered getting more in the upper left than in the upper right formation. So that's why you don't see, or one of the reasons why you do not see the attachment here as often. Again, it may be some specific cases you will, but in general you will not. And so white goes here, and so I just go elsewhere. I get this shoulder hit. And again, white plays in a very strange way, where white just pushes and allows me to double hane. When I'm able to double hane, notice white's unable to break through my shape here. And the nice thing about getting the double hane is whatever white ends up playing, like maybe white does this and maybe cuts here, white has to come back and live in the corner because these 5 stones are in danger of getting captured. So white has to, in the game white just fixed, but allowed me to fix my shape. So all of a sudden, look how I'm now connecting the left side up to the bottom side. Now there's still cuts here, but that actually happens in the game. But for now, you can see how my stones are really working together, whereas white has 3 fragmented groups. And in fact, on the next turn, makes their 4th one. And so what should white have done instead? White needs to just extend here. And the idea is, if I bump here, if white plays c6, it would be the same thing as the game, just a different order. But instead, white can't extend, by the way, because of this hane here. White can't cut. White gets captured. And even if white can play this empty triangle, it's going to hurt the corner group so much. So much. Yeah, that's going to be very painful. But white can simply just pull back, and now the seal-in is not as good for black, because what happens is when I cut here, white has an extra liberty at c6. So now white has no danger of these 3 stones capturing the white stone. So white could just cut, and yeah, this would be better for white. This would be better for white. Just pushes and goes there, and it makes another group. Just stand up. And this is a standard shape that comes from this variation, but also the variation I was showing in the upper right. If white didn't have the stone at Q10, it was a blank board, black could look to counterattack. And this is also a very nice move. A lot of players, this is kind of their go-to move. And it feels like a nice move, but it's a lot better to play almost a tripod shape to peep. And the reason why is if we just connect, my peeping stone has more liberties than this peeping stone, right? And so that means my peeping stone is more flexible. It's a lot stronger. If black plays here, though, which is what I do in the game, I'm able to push here. And it's almost like I'm getting another peep black has to fix. And same thing if black fixes like this. I get to stand up again, and they have to fix again. So that's why this is a lot better peep. A lot better peep. Play there, connect, and then white connects back. And then there's a very important move next, but it might surprise you if you don't know it, is the Hane. And so the Hane is actually attacking these 4 stones on the other side. And so how is it attacking? So by Haneing here, what I've done is, if I just play elsewhere, where can white go next? White can actually play b17 next. And b17 is threatening to connect white's left side to the upper left. And that's a problem, because if I feel the need to have to separate somehow, regardless of how I separate, if I don't get a good attack, this stone is not worth anything, right? It's just dame. So I need to make sure I can get a good attack, but if I have to play here and white can just live on the left side, then the stone will not be worth much. So by Haneing, what I've done, and then let's say white blocks, and white really does have to block. If you try to live or do something else, extending here makes, again, the push, or again, even attacking at f17, much more severe. So white has to block. So the difference is, let's say white, just like if I hadn't done that, right, white can descend in Sente to threaten to connect. Let's say white tries to do the same. The difference is now, this is an Atari, and now, if I just descend, it's Gote, it's not that great, but now I can Hane. And now, while this move is technically not fully Sente, I'm at least getting something for keeping white separated. And while it's true that if white connects and I surround, it's still a Ko. Ko is a lot better than just allowing them to connect for nothing. So Ko is better than nothing at all. So the Hane is a very important move. And so this is almost a kind of a general thing. A general thing in attacks is, if you can Hane to separate your opponents from connecting, it's a good technique to do. Just throw it there and forget about the stone. It's a good exchange. So I play here. So the idea with this move is I'm actually letting white choose how to attack or how to handle it. So if white just it helps the left side, I'm going to cut next. And the stone's in a very perfect spot. But if white just pushes, white's pushing me to surround the left side. So it's almost I'm making white choose for me so that I can pick accordingly. So white goes there, and then I push, and then white Hanes, but I descend and jump back. So now all of a sudden I'm actually getting the upper side too, and white's left side is starting to get surrounded. And then white comes in, and based on the result we get, we'll see that this really is wrong direction. White can simply just play here or be more severe towards the top. White could have also been more severe towards the top. But when white goes here, I just make my perfect extension, and we'll even see white gets a very heavy group in the process. So white touches here. This makes sense. When your opponent is strong on the upper side, you're not planning to attack this pincering stone. You can attach to it. Just get some extra forcing moves, like so. Stand up. And then white double approaches. This is the general idea. If you're going to make these exchanges, you are going to double approach. So I attach. Again, I want to capture the top. White plays there. And in this shape, it is true that I can't block here, because now it's a case of if I do give up the 2 like this, the difference is white hasn't added a move at S12. And there's, even though I've cut off this 1 stone here, there's actually a lot of aji if white gets this hane next. And so white actually is very efficiently captured these, or cut off these 2 stones. And even there's other ways for white to play. So I just stayed connected. I valued these 2 stones because they were cutting off the entire upper side. And if white really wants the corner, I figured I'm getting more anyways. But white plays here, which is a nice shape point, but it destroys my shape, but equally destroys white's shape. And then white did something very surprising to me, is white jumps here. I was like, you're trying to save those stones? Look at the value of those stones. If white saves those stones, how many points does white make? None. Because white's not even, technically I guess white is threatening to cut at Q15, but of course black knows that. So black's not going to let that happen. So white, and you can't attack the upper side either. So white really needs to, make something happen with them. So that's why I actually think white should just give them up. But treat them lightly at least. Because there though, Atari connects, and so I cut. And always cut to ask how white's going to play. White stands up, but I'm able to hane. White cuts. Don't have the ladder, but I can simply connect back. And again, white would like to be able to save here, but white's upper side is too heavy. So white has to Atari, and then jump here. And here, this feels like a minor mistake too. White really needs to connect like this. While this is usually the better shape, when white goes here, I simply just turn. And now white cannot block at S11. And so I'm going to get all these turns, and what's important about this is now I don't need to capture these 2 stones, or add a move to capture them. When it's like this, I need to add a stone. I need to play R15. But when it's like this, I've extended my liberties, and now I don't need to add a stone. It's 4 to 3 liberties. So I have Sente here. So I hane, white double hanes, and I extend. And again, this is setting up saving these 2 stones. So white hanes, I jump, white extends, I cut and make bamboo joint, make good shape. And then white cuts. And I think there's a lot of ways to play this. I think the way I played in the game was just fine. One way to play it is to play this kind of move immediately, because white capturing this 1 stone isn't actually what's valuable. The left side is what's valuable. So I can ask white first, how are you going to play? So if, let's say I play here, right, and white fixes. Now I can Atari and just push through like this. And now white's 4 stones are heavy and the left side's getting under attack. So yeah, I think this is probably the best move, but a lot of moves here work for black. So in this case, I had this kind of similar idea where the left side's important. So play here, white Ataris, connect. And yeah, again, I had a chance here to just let white connect here. And again, just kill the left side. Just kill the left side, help my bottom side, do something, right? But I'll mention in a few moves why I connected here, and hopefully you can see what what I was seeing. But at the end of the day, it was not a huge mistake, but probably not the best move to connect here, because now white gets the first move in the center. So white jumps, I attach, or push, and again, even here, if I just clamp here, the problem for white is now white has 2 weak groups. White has these 6 stones that need to live, and these 6 stones. And I have 1 weak group, but 1 weak group's a lot better than 2 weak groups. So push, white stands up. And so H2, and then throw in. And so this was basically my misread for the last, however long this was on the board, basically. Basically, as long as I've been, I did this initial shoulder hit, I thought there was something in the corner here. I was like, okay, now this is a huge flower co for me, because if I win, I kill the whole corner. So I can basically get anything. But I misread when white connected. I was like, oh, white can just connect. White doesn't need to fight this ko. White doesn't need to just do this and fight the ko like this. So this was a big blunder by me. And so going back to this move, the reason why I connected was to keep the value of the ko bigger. Whereas, you know, if white's able to run out, then me winning this ko would just capture the 4 stones if these stones out here were out in the center. So it was me trying to make the ko bigger, but there was no ko. So again, that's where like maybe the move itself is okay, but the idea behind it was definitely a mistake because I was looking at the ko, trying to keep the entire group unsettled. We do that, and even playing these moves, because I play here, I end up wasting ko threats. So yeah, like I could have played all those things I just played for the most part, not all of them, but some of them as ko threats. I can play this as a ko threat. White takes, white wedges and connects, yeah. And then I extend here though, and white ignores, because white ignores once, it's hard to ignore again. I jump, and then white plays there. And even here though, I've lost the entire lower left somehow to my my ko blunder, misread. But if you look at the board, if the left side is surrounded and I have a huge upper side now, a huge upper side, it's still a good game for black. Black is still leading in this game. My ko threat was actually quite big. And so I was like, okay, as long as white doesn't make up about 20 points, I'll be okay here. So I connect here. White descends because white actually is quite weak in the upper side. So white adds a move. And then I extend here because I'm looking at the board. I'm like, okay, what are the last big spots on the board, right? Like I could play in the upper side, but if I just do something else, all right, that's not a good example. Let's say here, when you're super strong, like before when I played P4, playing a move like O3 would not make that much sense. But now that white has turned the tables and now white's super strong in the lower left, this move's quite severe. This move is quite severe. So yeah, I was like, let's prevent that. But I've missed something big on this board. And it's not just missing something big, but something obvious too. Is that I can just threaten to capture the left side. And that's big enough. And even by itself, white might just be dead here, as is. And white can maybe get a ko to connect underneath, but if I seal white in like this, I've connected up all my groups. And yeah, and it doesn't matter if white gets this move if I can just kill the left side. Or maybe do this one. Because now I have the top and the left side, and that is huge. So when I go here, white stands up here. Then again, if I had taken it, because I remember I played this game, or I was playing this game, white made this move, I quickly Hana'd here. Because of course, you know, I'm gonna Hane here. But I had a much better move if I just capture here. If I just capture here, white can cut here, but these 3 stones are inconsequential. They do not matter. They do not matter at all. As long as I can, 1, save my left side, but 2, keep white sealed in. That's the main thing here. And if white tries to play this kind of move, I can still connect. And now we're both running, but again, the key is I am now safe in the upper side. But when I Hane here, the problem is when white Hane's back. The thing that I saw that I could cut here. What I didn't see when I initially went here was that white's not going to like try to fight here or Hane here or do something. White's going to connect here. And if I cannot capture these 2, now 3, now 4 stones, this entire upper left is cut off and dying. And so this is when I kind of go into a little bit of panic mode, because you see I'm trying to live now on the left side, because if I can just like do this, let white cut and live on the left side, like this, you know, this would be fine. But white would have enough liberties here. To win any semi-I. So yeah, white just does something like that. White has a lot of outside liberties and I do not. So, yeah. I cut, though, because I'm like, okay, I have to live on the left side, but then white cuts. And now it's a question of, can I capture these 2 stones? Now, or 4 stones now. And the quick answer is no. And I've read a lot, and this is where Fisher time is nice, because if it's a move I know where I'm going to play, I can save time. But if it's something I need to read out like this, I can now use my time accordingly. So now I'm using a lot of my time. Everything else before this was not super quickly played, but, like I know what I'm doing. I'm going to just play quick. But now I have my extra time to now decide how I'm going to handle this. But it turns out it's not a really nice way to handle it. It's because white's starting to connect back to this group. Because even if I can surround, right, something like this, I only have 5 liberties. So I push and cut. And then white goes there. And again, there's no way for me to limit white's liberties. And so white jumps. And now that white has cut off these stones, white's back to life here. It's game over unless I can find something on the right side. I try this move. Nothing here will really work. I try, though. Peep. I fix by going there, because if I connect by going here, white has this Atari and squeeze. And even if white ends up dying, if white separates me from my bottom right group, I'll have to spend moves now to capture all these stones up here, which would be very painful. So that's why I fix by going there, but white blocks. Again, I'm making some sort of Sente moves, even play T5. But yeah, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And there's even a big problem on the board for black of this move, where this move just simply kills. Throw in. And yeah, play a few more moves out, but yeah, white just ends up winning the semi there. So both my groups on the left side end up dying. Or if you look at it, my entire left side ended up dying. So yeah, it was a pretty unfortunate game. I will say, like, I was frustrated with the game, but like I wasn't frustrated with the whole game. Like, the reason why I was frustrated was because I was doing so well. Like, it's one thing to lose a game early on and then you just lose. It's like, okay, I lost the game. But the fact that I had, or at least I felt I had a strong lead and then end up blowing it, those are always the worst losses for me, at least. So yeah, just going back, like, if I just didn't play this move and I just play it again, just this kind of move, even if white lives on the left side, my top side is so big that it's enough for black to win this game. So if I just did not play this one move, or even when white went here, if I just take here, then it's a strong game for black. But I missed those 2 moves, and against strong players, that's all you need. So yeah, but that was my 3rd round game. That was my first loss. That was my first loss of the tournament, so I'm 2-1. And going out of this game, like going to the next game, all I was telling myself was, don't let what happened in this game affect your last round game. So yeah, overall a very nice game. Like, I was very happy with how I played. Just a few bad moves towards the end, and it cost me. So it's hard not to get too down on yourself, especially during the tournament. You haven't played all your games, but like, looking back through the game, it's like, okay, yeah, I did play quite well in this game. So yeah, if you have any questions about this game, please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next video.